Today, it's November 20th, 2022. A division of the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that AR-15 is not protected by the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I'm Esmeralda Padilla-Gould, and welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to this week's edition of The Pulse.
Last week, the 7th Circuit of the U.S. Court of Appeals, who has appellate jurisdiction for Illinois, Michigan, and Indiana, upheld a state law in Illinois banning automatic weapons and refused to put a hold on implementation of the law. A 3-judge panel in the 7th Circuit, who are based in Chicago, Illinois, voted 2-1 on the issue. The majority decision were from Judge Frank Eastwood, a Reagan appointee, and Judge Diane Wood, a Bill Clinton appointee. They recognized that there is a difference between firearms for personal use and those that are reserved for trained professionals, semi-automatic weapons, including the popular AR-15. The majority opinion said that there is a long tradition unchanged from the time the Second Amendment was added to the Constitution, supporting a distinction between weapons and accessories designed for military and law enforcement use and those for personal use, and that the legislation now before us relies on that distinction. The Illinois state law known as Protect Illinois Communities Act, which passed during a lame duck session of the state legislature and signed into law by Governor J.B. Pritzker, will take effect on January 1st, 2024. And was challenged in court by gun rights advocates. The law bans specific brands and type of rifles and handguns, 50 caliber guns, attachments, and rapid firing devices, and that no rifles will be allowed to accommodate more than 10 rounds, and 15 rounds limit on handguns. Those who already own those weapons listed in the law at the time the law was enacted has to register them with the Illinois State Police. That process already began on October 1st this year. In the legal challenge to the law, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the law on a 4-3 decision in August this year. Governor Pritzker said in statement, "The Protect Illinois Communities Act is a common sense law, despite constant attack by gun lobby that puts ideology over people's lives. Here in Illinois, we stood up and said, no more to weapons of war or war on our streets." The United States ranked number 1 worldwide in mass murders perpetrated by civilians who own guns. The most recent last month in the state of Maine claimed the lives of 17 people. There are currently 8 states in the Union that have state laws that specify prohibitions on high-powered rifles, handguns, and accessories.
For the second time this year, the U.S. House of Representatives averted a government shutdown as the lower chamber of Congress passed a continuing resolution to authorize budget at the current spending level. House Speaker Johnson, the Republican from Louisiana, put the resolution on the floor that was backed by a majority members of the Republican conference and got the help from some Democrats to pass the resolution in the House without any deep cuts that were being proposed by the MAGA conservative wing known as the House Freedom Caucus, a Republican wing. The same group were angered that the new speaker did not back their proposal for spending cuts, which in reality is unpopular in their district, but are used mainly as political talking points. They did not vote with other Republicans in the spending resolution, but more than a dozen Democrats voted with the Republicans to pass the continuing resolution to keep the government open. The difference of opinion within the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives and the serious infighting among Republicans during the last budget authorization led by former Speaker Kevin McCarthy resulted in the Speaker being voted out from his seat. Such rebellion was led by MAGA Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. After the vote for continuing resolution for government spending and to keep the government open, the opponents within the Republicans in the House showed their dismay by leaving Washington early than usual for the break into their home districts. Some expressed their dislike of Speaker Johnson's action. The continuing resolution was sent to the U.S. Senate and readily passed, and sent to the White House for the President's signature on November 15, the deadline for Congress to authorize spending that prevented a government shutdown. The longest government shutdown happened during the presidency of Donald Trump, where the government employees had not go to work and many government programs were on hold because of the absence of the appropriation bill from both chambers of Congress. The MAGA faction of the House Republicans had been advocating for deep cuts to federal essential programs on Social Security and social services, and even our national defense, with the excuse of reducing the national budget deficits. But the Democrats are not buying it, saying if they really want to reduce deficits, Congress needs to pass law to tax the super rich in this country and big corporations. Big corporations in America used to pay an average of 35% income tax on their net profit. But President Trump, with the Republican-controlled U.S. Senate, allowed the corporate income tax to drop to 21%, which was a big bonanza for giant corporations while bringing in less money for the U.S. Treasury. That's why Democrats are saying it was the Republicans who caused the national debt to rise to $33 trillion in 4 years of Trump presidency.
Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
The legal team of former President Donald Trump was reported by multiple media outlets as having filed a motion for mistrial with Judge Arthur N. Goron in the $250 million fraud case being prosecuted by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Lawyers for Trump in the case called for a mistrial in the New York civil fraud case, arguing that Judge Arthur N. Goron and his law clerk were politically biased against defendant. The long-shot legal effort filed in N. Goron's court, which is called a Supreme Court of New York in Manhattan, as the New York County Superior Courts are called, comes after the judge issued 2 separate gag orders on Trump and his lawyers, and on 2 separate occasions were fined for violating the said gag orders. The trial being held in Manhattan, New York is just for the determination of financial penalties in the case, where the Trump family and the Trump Organization have already been found guilty by way of a summary judgment by Judge N. Goron, based on preponderance of evidence. The summary judgment requested by Attorney General Letitia James was granted early this year as a result of delays in responding to court requests that the defendant cooperate with the subpoenas and depositions, which Trump is infamous for using his tactics of delay, and delay. Many legal analysts are describing the effort as the only thing left in the Trump legal team arsenal, as they are unable to present any evidence for defense, And that is why Trump just keeps attacking the judge and the law clerk. And his legal team are doing the same, hoping that an uncontained anger by the judge will be a ground to seek a mistrial, which the judge is likely to decline. And the appeal to the Court of Appeals will delay the case as the 2024 election period approaches. Other knowledgeable lawyers and former judges and prosecutors describe this as a dangerous move for the defense. But my favorite analysis is that by Michael Popok of the Midas Touch Network.
Donald Trump has filed his motion for mistrial in the civil fraud case. He's fallen in love with a new term, that of co-judging, a phrase I've never heard before as a longtime practitioner in New York. And for good measure, he spends about half the brief doing exactly what the gag order against Donald Trump and his lawyers have told them that they cannot do, which is to attack by name and even photograph the principal law clerk that works hand in glove with the judge. They're wrong on the law. They're wrong on the facts. They're wrong on comments made about the media, and they're wrong about the grounds for a mistrial. Let me break it all down right here on this particular hot take. Their fundamental argument in their brief for Donald Trump and the others is that the principal law clerk somehow has been elevated inappropriately to be a co-judge. They use that phrase about half a dozen times throughout the brief as a filler. They've fallen in love with the concept. They think it has the imagery that they want, that it's not Judge Engoron who's making all the rulings, it's the principal law clerk. This demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of the principal law clerk in a New York State Supreme Court proceeding. I've done other hot takes on this. I've been practicing here for 32 years. I know these courts. I know the governing laws and rules, and I know the role of the law clerk in New York practice, which is quite unique. It's not like what Chris Kice does down in Florida. They don't have the equivalent of a principal law clerk down there. And it's certainly not what these two lawyers that signed the brief along with Chris Kice, in this case, I'll put it up here, Alina Habba and Cliff Robert, they don't understand this either. First of all, Alina Habba lists an address as if she practices regularly in New York. I know this address, 112 West 34th Street. It is a Regency office co-sharing space. It's not even her office. It's right down the street from my real office where I practice law in New York. She does not practice regularly in New York. If you put her name into Google or into LexisNexis, I defy you to find any real substantive reported decisions in which she's practiced law in New York or could even comment about procedure the way they have in this filing. And Cliff Robert and his associate, who practice not in Manhattan where the court is located, but out in Long Island, don't know it any better either. Because if they did, they wouldn't make comments like they've done in the brief to suggest that there's something untoward or unethical about a judge who is the trier of fact in a bench trial with no jury, relying on a communication, investigation, note-taking, or otherwise by his principal law clerk.
We have more for you after the commercial break. Please stay with us.
Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. President Joe Biden attended the APEC summit that was held in San Francisco, California. APEC, the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, were attended by leaders of countries in Asia and the Pacific and aims to foster economic cooperations and trade balance and promote peace in the region. Central to the theme of a meeting between President Biden and President Xi Jinping of China is how to diffuse the military tension between the U.S. and China over China's claim of the entire China Sea, especially the ongoing threat of a military engagement in those waters between China and the Philippines, in the Spratly group of islands where China built a military base that is only 30 minutes by fighter jets away from the Philippine mainland. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos also attended the APEC summit and had a sit-down with President Xi of China for the same reason as to discuss how to diffuse the tension in the Spratly group. As of last week, reports are coming in that there are now 13 Chinese Coast Guard vessels that had been interfering the works of the Philippine Coast Guard to resupply our islands in the Kalayaan Group and the Philippine Marine Base in the grounded ship BRP Sierra Madre.
Nevada State Attorney General Aaron Ford is investigating the 6 fake electors from the state during the 2020 presidential election where Donald Trump lost. Among those being investigated and can result in criminal prosecution is Nevada Republican Party Chairman Michael McDonald. The fake elector scheme was concocted by Trump re-election committee lawyer in the White House, Kenneth Chesebro, who is now a defendant of the Georgia RICO case, for conspiracy to defraud the state of Georgia and reverse the election result favoring Donald Trump. Similar fake electors in 2 other states like Michigan and Georgia are also now facing indictment in their respective state. The slot of fake electors and their certificates signifying they are true electors for the Electoral College and symbolically vote for the winner in each state were to be counted by then Vice President Mike Pence on January 6, 2021, when Congress certifies the election of the winner. But Mike Pence refused to accept those bogus documents of the fake electors.
Here's a report from Ben Maiceles of Midas Touch that has the legal analysis of the crime.
But there have been a number of news stories in your state in the past, sir, saying that, there have been in previous elections ballots who have been sent out to people who no longer live in Clark County and people who are no longer alive. So there is a bit of a precedent. It has happened before, according to numerous news agencies in Nevada.
Now, I don't come on Fox News frequently, but when I do, I'm going to be certain to reject improper premises. There is not a history of that in this state. And in fact, it's entirely to the contrary. Our Secretary of State, who is a Republican, has said point blank that we do not have a history of widespread voter fraud. And by the way, one of the reasons why it's taken so long to count these ballots is because we are trying to prevent voter fraud. We have safeguards in place, such as signature verification, such as unique barcodes. And by the way, again, if someone does commit voter fraud, I prosecute, as I'm already doing, based on the one that we've seen from last election cycle.
Where do the Nevada lawsuits stand as we sit right here today, sir?
They've lost them all, including the one yesterday.
That was an interview from November 7th, 2020 with Nevada's Attorney General Aaron Ford. Aaron Ford, it is now being reported 3 years later, is leading a criminal investigation into the fake electors in the state of Nevada. I'm Ben Maiceles from the Midas Touch Network. Add Nevada to one of the states that is now criminally investigating or criminally prosecuting these fake electors. Obviously, in Georgia, there is a RICO criminal prosecution of fake electors, as well as Donald Trump. In Michigan, there is a criminal prosecution of the 16 fake electors there. In Arizona, of course, it's been reported that there is a criminal investigation being led by Attorney General Chris Mays. And now Aaron Ford from Nevada engaged in a criminal investigation involving the 6 fake electors in the state of Nevada. And in the state of Nevada, these fake electors, sure left quite a compelling paper trail of evidence, like, I don't know, this tweet back on December 14th of 2020. History made today in Carson City, Nevada, as at McDonald, Nevada leads our electors in casting Nevada's 6 electoral votes for the winner of Nevada, at Real Donald Trump and at Mike Pence. Kind of, I don't know, confessing to the crime right there, announcing the crime that's being committed. And by the way, all of this was coordinated on December 14th, where all of these fake electors submitted their fake electoral slates. Also, that was part of a coordinated plan of Ken Chesebro, Donald Trump's lawyer, who has already pled guilty in the criminal RICO case in Fulton County, Georgia.
Israeli ground forces in Gaza has taken over the largest hospital in Gaza. The Al-Shifa hospital was taken over by Israeli troops after several bombs were dropped nearby. According to several mainstream news networks, the hospital is an epicenter of the war. The Israeli military claims Hamas uses the hospital as a tunnel for operations. So far, there has been no report of Hamas actually hiding in the hospital. Here's a report from NBC, and there was details about the attack inside Gaza.
This morning, medical staff emerging from Ibn Sina Hospital in the West Bank, their hands raised. Israel saying gunmen may have run there to hide after what Israel says is a counter-terror operation where at least 5 were killed, and Palestinian officials say 47 arrested in the West Bank today. While inside Gaza, operations continue in Al-Shifa Hospital, where Israeli Defense Forces have been for days and now say they have found the bodies of 2 hostages close by. 19-year-old Israeli soldier Noah Marciano and 65-year-old hostage Yehudit Weiss, who had been suffering from cancer. We believed we would welcome her back, her daughter cries. The Israeli Defense Force says these images it filmed show the entrance to a tunnel in the hospital complex. NBC News has not visited the hospital to see for ourselves. The images showing some guns, grenades and computers Israel says were inside.
Is it fair to say that you found something there, but not everything you said you'd find?
No, we're just scratching the surface. Now, I think we need to be a bit patient, and we are 100% certain that this is a base of operations.
The Secretary of State telling Lester Holt last night.
Exactly why there should be assault rifles located next to an MRI machine escapes me. And this is compelling evidence of the fact that Hamas embeds itself in civilian infrastructure of one kind or another.
Multiple hospitals in Gaza are under siege, lacking fuel and medical supplies, health officials say. These were scenes posted online of the Indonesian hospital in Gaza, wounded Palestinians lying on the floor. Israel says Hamas was here and at Al-Quds hospital, denied by Hamas. The Palestinian Red Crescent releasing images it says shows patients wheeled south on hospital beds amid destruction. But the Israeli military warns it will soon head south too, where already more hospitals are overwhelmed. Our team this morning filming more chaos and bloodshed.
This morning, Savannah, the World Health Organization says civilians in Gaza are at risk of starvation. Quote, food and water are practically non-existent there. Of course, the Israelis would say that Hamas are putting civilians in harm's way and that they have allowed humanitarian aid.
In the Philippines, the second case against jailed Philippine Senator Laila de Lima is likely to be dismissed. This is according to Philippine Secretary of Justice Remulla. Senator de Lima was able to be released today on bail for the second case. The first case had already been dismissed. Senator de Lima was a strong vocal critic against the former President Rodrigo Duterte on his war on drugs that set conducts of extrajudicial killings, which the rhetorics of the president gave a green light to conduct killings of thousands of victims who are alleged drug pushers and users. In a separate story concerning former President Rodrigo Duterte, Quezon City Senior Prosecutor Ulrich Badiola signed a subpoena ordering Duterte to appear on both December 4th and December 11th, which a complaint was filed by an ACT Teachers Party List representative, Franz Castro. The complaint by Congresswoman Castro was based on a Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, an oral defamation in which Duterte had been making false accusation of Castro in the network SMNI as a member of the Communist Party, which the Congresswoman said is not true. Last week, Congressman George Santos of Long Island, New York, said he will no longer run for re-election after the House Subcommittee on Ethics investigating his impropriety and possible crime was released. Only the week before, the House of Representatives could not come up with enough vote to oust him from Congress. Congressman Santos vowed to stay in his seat until the court decision for his indictment has been issued.
We're out of time for this episode. Thank you for watching. I'm Esmeralda Padilla-Gould.
And I'm Sam Buban. God bless your week.